international order and the liberal international order and the US hegemony, I mean, from the Turkish perspective and Japanese perspective, we have seen different approaches. Let me take it out of here. So in Turkish perspective, we see that the international environment is in transition, as well as our Japanese experts also share that transition period in international order. As you can see, I'm just briefly explaining some bullet points of our research. And so the other question is, what are the specific challenges posed by the rise of the so-called neo-revisionist powers? For Turkey, the real neo-revisionist powers, namely Russia, and which matters for Turkey more, and also for Japan, they care more about China, as can understandably. From the Turkish and Japanese perspective, most of the experts agree that they destabilize regional security environment for Japan and for Turkey, and also they undermine the rule-based international system. These two approaches are quite robust from Turkish and Japan understanding for describing these neo-revisionist powers, namely China and Russia. And also for the evaluation of the position of US in the international system, according to Turkish and Japanese experts, the decline of any possibility of decline of American leadership is unequivocally an important factor in the weakening of the liberal international order. This is also a very common point shared by the Japanese and Turkish experts. So the other issue I just want to raise in 10 minutes, what are the main alliances management issues that the United States needs to attend to? So in Turkish and also in Japanese perspective, they share that enhancing policy coordination with allies and also rebuilding trust and alliances, solidarity, cohesion. And for other issues, also Turkish and Japanese experts are in line with each other. But from the other perspective, for the US security commitment reliability, as understandably, in Turkey we have some concerns, and also you must also be aware of the hot topic on this issue, especially US PYD, PKK associated PYD relations in northern Syria, and also S-400 issues. Two hot topics we need to consider. So having stated that one, in Turkish perspective, only 20% of our experts share that US can be reliable from Turkish understanding. In Japanese case, reliability rate is so high, it increases to 80%. So there are some issues we need to raise. Maybe our panelists also touch upon that issues for understanding. But for the future, not for the time, how do you evaluate the nature of your country's relationship with the United States? Actually, from Turkish perspective, it is more or less transactional or mixed, depending on case, circumstantial for Turkish case. But from Japanese case, it is quite different from Turkish experience. It is value-based, more value-based, or also mixed. So some challenges might change from Turkish perspective for Russia and China, and also some neo-revisionist power changes or opportunities. Actually, in that case, Japanese perceive them as a threat, but Turkey doesn't perceive as a threat Russia or China, but in Japan case, they perceive it as a threat. But from the other perspective, there are some differentiation as well, which understandable. I just want to be quick, just for keeping the time. What are the main security challenges to your country? This question is also from Turkish perspective. Non-traditional security challenges matter also threat for Turkish understanding, which is different from the Japanese perspective. So as you can see, there are many similarities also. There are some diversifications from the Japanese perspective. If the case is rising militarization of state actors, it really matters for Japan, but from the Turkish understanding, it is a case, separatism would be an important case from Turkish understanding regarding the regional concerns. And also it's the same for other security challenges. On one hand, Japanese experts care about technology and digital cyber issues more, but from Turkish understanding, terrorism or migration would be more important, as you can understand from the issues. So how do you evaluate the relationship that the United States wants to establish with your country in terms of meeting your country's states' expectations? As you can see in Turkish understanding, 2 out of 3, 2/3 of experts share that the United States has failed to fulfill my country's expectations regarding the former period S-400's PYD, and even the Trump letter was a case. How do you evaluate your country's relationship with the United States compared to a decade ago? In Turkish understanding, it is worse. In Japanese understanding, it is way better than the previous period. So, what about the future? For future relations, US and Turkey, US and Japan relations, Japan and Turkey share the positivist approach. For these approaches, actually, this creates a kind of hope from either side, that the Turkish side and also Japanese side are sharing that future relations will be better than the previous period. So, and also the very interesting approach for Quad and NATO. I highly recommend you check the report in details, because NATO is not only a case for the time being, but also was a case during the Cold War. But for Japan, the Quad is new approach, and also the relations in Quad could be, the NATO-Turkey relations could be sample for the Quad relations in Japan and US relations. So, for the international order, and my moderator, Bahadur Sensi, wants me to keep the time in better. So, in a short, the Japanese participants more inclined to ascribe a role for their country, arguing that Japan has the capacity to work towards that objective. The Turkish experts instead underscores that as a middle power, Türkiye lacks the capacity to shape the future of liberal international order. Nonetheless, more realistic approach. Nonetheless, some experts maintain optimism that Türkiye may have the potential to become one of the main pillars of this order, provided that it plays its cards right. So, in conclusion, first, the US needs to demonstrate its ongoing commitment to the alliances, including NATO and the non-NATO ones, to Japan and to Turkey in that case. Second, although Japan relaxed the limitations on its military in 2015 and became active in forging military cooperation with various countries, the US should keep its expectations from Japan still limited, since there is already resistance among the Japanese public to play a larger military role. Third, the US should take into account the threat perceptions of its NATO ally Turkey. This is particularly so, especially considering how the importance of Turkey's Turkey's. So I need to get used to Turkey in English. Turkey's geographical position, which has been reiterated once again with the Russia-Ukraine war. This is our text from our experts from after the Biden administration and the comparative approach of Turkey and Japan for its role in the new international order, which is in transition. Thank you for your patience. I can pass the floor to Sensei with starting this screen share. Thank you all.
Professor Yalçınkaya. Yes, after the COVID, we used to start to make these kind of hybrid events, something a little new for us. I would like to again thank to our Japanese participants who are in Japan. Now it's kind of late, the time is approaching 8 o'clock, I suppose. So I'm not going to take too much time. Let me introduce our first speaker, Professor KANEHARA, NOBUKATSU KANEHARA, from DOSHISHA University. He has a distinguished career. Professor KANEHARA is also the honorary chairman of our project group. Professor KANEHARA served as Assistant Chief Cabinet Secretary to late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe from 2012 and 2019. In 2013, Professor KANEHARA became the inaugural Deputy Secretary General of the National Security Secretariat, a role which held until his retirement from the government service in 2019. He also served as the Deputy Director of the Cabinet Intelligence and Research Office in Japan. Mr. KANEHARA's role in the cabinet was built on a distinguished career at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where he served in a number of notable positions, which included Director General of Bureau of International Law, Deputy Director General of the Foreign Policy Bureau, Ambassador in charge of the United Nations and Human Rights. He also served abroad as Deputy Chief of Mission in Seoul, Republic of Korea, and Political Minister at the Embassy of Japan in Washington. He was decorated by the President of Republic of France with l'Ordre de Légion d'Honneur. Thank you very much for spending your time, sparing your time and participating, Professor KANEHARA. I will immediately leave the floor to you for your speech. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Am I going to speak 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or how long can I speak? 5 minutes?
10 minutes, if this is possible. Okay.
Good. Thank you very much for having me. I wish to commend the both teams, Japanese and the Turkish team, to complete this splendid work. And this is a very good analysis and informative and comprehensive, and we can know where our interests lie and how much they are close and how much they are far away. But it is very important to compare notes in this way. Let me give you the reasons. In this century, the gravity of history is moving towards from Atlantic to the Pacific, towards the end of the last century. Now the gravity of history is moving from the East Asia to West Asia. And China rose, but China is now peaking out. They can make some difficulties like Mr. Putin in Asia. But we could manage that if the West is united. And then the India is now rising, West Asia is rising. After that, the Africans could rise too towards the end of this century. And this is the 300 years of global industrialization triggered by the British. And it will go around, and every nation can be industrialized, and the wealth will spread. And we are now making a new liberal international order. The key question is the West of Westerners, are they going to be marginalized, or are they going to expand into our Asian and African and Middle East regions? Is the liberal order going to be marginalized, or is it expanding? This is the key question to ask now. And I have to say, the liberal order will expand because that will touch the truth of humans. Humans have all dignity, and dignity is absolutely equal, regardless of skin color, creed, religion, and the sex. And we can make a norms by talking to each other, but we do share very basic ethical emotions like love, care, conscience, God, and we can make this. But for that purpose, we have to polish the universal values that the Westerners wants to hoist, but the universal values must be universal, and universality can be polished only in diversity. And now these universal values of Westerners are now expanding into the global South, and this can be tested now in this century. And there, the Japanese and Turks have special responsibilities to prove that we do share the values. We are not the true Westerners, we are Asians, but we do share the very basic values, and it is ours, not theirs. And we can prove that these are not white Christian. This is truly universal. This is the truth of humans. We can do that. For that purpose, the Putin, Xi Jinping, these two heroes are challengers. They do not understand what we mean, and we have to finish the Ukrainian war, not with the victory of Russians. We have to push this back, and we cannot allow China to invade Taiwan. And if we could manage these two big powers together with the other powers, we can truly establish a true global liberal order. And that is our responsibility. For that purpose, we have to compare notes. We have to understand each other. What are the others' interests? On the other side of the continent, we have to understand what's going on. What are their interests? We should not look at the Americans, only Americans. We should look at the American allies on the other side of the continent. Then we can understand better each other. And sometimes Americans are superpower. It is sometimes very difficult to engage them. It is true. But we do have to compare notes. And sometimes we have to talk to the Americans in the same voice to engage them, not only to be engaged, but we have to engage Americans to complete our big job to establish a global liberal order. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kanehara, for timekeeping as well. Thank you for these distinguished remarks. And I would like to immediately continue with Professor HÜSEYİN BAÐCI, which we very well know. Professor BAÐCI is a professor at the Middle East Technical University, Department of International Relations, and he's also the president of the Policy Academy. I'm so sorry. So I think we have to invite you here, Professor, because the microphone is here, and as well.
Bahadur Sensei, academics are giving their money while correcting mistakes, always. Bahadur was watching wrongly, so I have to correct, but this is our life. But I cannot correct the American mistakes, what they do in international politics or the liberal order discussions. Thank you very much, first of all, for this very interesting report, which will be distributed soon also internationally. We will also publish it in our webpage. The basic question is here, the US approach to international cooperation and alliances during the Biden administration. It means here, the Japanese and the Turks, actually, we look how America is dealing with this. We are two different countries far away from each other, but allies of the United States of America. We are member of NATO since 1952. If you want, you can go back to 1945 or 1947, Truman Doctrine, beginning, where Americans provided Turkey economic and military aid. But we have to see also that Japan and Turkey are two countries who lost empires Japanese Empire and Ottoman Empire. And the children or generations of those empires, the empires, they have different approach to the context and the smaller nation states which emerged because of these empires were dissolved. Well, Joshua Walker, who is now leading the American-Japanese Association in New York, he published his thesis actually about Turkish Empire and Ottoman Empire relations, and he came to the conclusion that in the beginning of the 20th century, these two countries, geopolitically speaking, have been not only subject of the division and occupation, but at the same time, as later on, after 1945, important democratic societies, getting these democratic values, as the previous speaker mainly mentioned, we, the West, is said the Western values, but Japan is not in the West, in the geographical sense. Barry Bosom, the British academic, in his article in Survival, he was writing in the late 90s, there are two so-called Westernistic states. Westernistic means countries who have the Western values, but not belonging to the Western societies because of their religion and cultural differences. Westernistic means that you have the political structure of the West, but you try to keep your cultural, political, and historical peculiarities for yourself. So this is very interesting. At the end of the day, we are, both countries, part of the Western international system, but trying to keep our specific role historically and also what concerns the future development. So this is why I congratulate Professor Yalçınkaya and his team all together. To get this type of view is important exactly now when we have a new discussion of the new world order discussions, or as Francis Fukuyama says, this is not the end of history, but this is the new chapter of the history. So the end of history means in 1989, when the Soviet Union dissolved, everybody thought that the history is ended. No, it is not. Actually, we just begin now in a multilateral structure in the world, where Americans are not anymore the only military power, not the only one, but still dominating. And this domination will last for another decade until China in 2036 will have 14 military warships. At the moment, they are in 4. Every 2 years, they get 1 military warship. So what it means, China is emerging, as Kishore Mahbubani was writing in his article in the late 90s, can Asians think? It was the article where he was saying there is something happening on the eastern side of the world, and we have to take very careful the developments there. It was Bill Clinton, American president, who said the 21st century will be the Asia-Pacific century. So Kishore Mahbubani's one of the latest publications is this: has China won? The other monography is, has the West lost? So 94 pages monogram, very interestingly debating that the Western values are not anymore universal values, although my previous speaker was talking about the universality of the Western values. It is not anymore so dominating as it was the case during the Cold War years. John Mearsheimer, Professor Shaban Kardesh likes him also a lot, was here in Ankara, and I was with him in Sochi. John Mearsheimer wrote the book, The Delusion of Liberal World Order. So the liberal world order is cracking down. This is the problem. And Joe Biden's administration actually continues to show us that there are problems. Whether Donald Trump will be back or not is another issue. If he is coming back as an academic, I will be very happy because we will discuss a lot. It creates a lot of troubles for us. It is good from my perspective. that we have to talk more. But the question is here, is the liberal order containing, is the liberal order defining the world since, as it was the case since 1945, opening to the world, open door policy, trade relations, all these international institutions from IMF to World Bank, from World Trade Organization to many others, we have seen that the international order mostly based on economic institutions actually, that dollar was the most important currency worldwide to make international trade, but it is reducing now. It is reducing now, the euro is there, Britain has its own currency. China and Russia now tries to get more in their national currencies, more business. It means in the 90s, it was nearly 60% of the world trade conducted in dollars. Today is around 40%. So there are some challenges to American economic order, political order, and this is what actually this report shows. I will, of course, make references a lot. We, the Turks, are particularly hit by this development. We do, as you can see here, the Turks do not trust America as an ally. The values are questioned. Whether it's right or wrong, the question is how to improve the American perception in Turkey. It is maybe another topic for the future. How can we deal with this, and how Turkey should definitely continue to be part of Western institutions, military as well as economic institutions. America is not anymore the superpower as it was based in the 90s. Hybrid power, it was the power where the Soviets declined. China was not so developing as today. I'm talking about 25 years, 30 years ago. Today, it is not the case. The world is changing, the countries are changing, the generations are changing, and the Americans, even during the COVID period, and then after this, when we saw the American Congress taken by the certain civilians, I mean, it was like the Middle East countries, at least in my country, we have experienced several times this type of thing, that the military was intervening. The issue is here, again, under Biden administration particularly, how far Biden administration can go back, because he said when he came to power, we are back. We are back, what it means. In military terms, in economic terms, Donald Trump said America first. He said we are back. In the last 2 years, has America achieved that America is back? Question mark. Afghanistan is the greatest failure. Now the war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, the European countries, seems to me, if I'm wrong, I'll change my salary anyway, if I'm wrong. If I'm right, was an increase. But the thing is here, the European countries at the moment are in more chaotic conditions than ever before. Germany, France, Britain. Now we have the new countries. Italy, look what happens in Italy. What does Poland and the Balkan countries? Suddenly, Balkan countries became again a very important geopolitical region, and who is getting their influence is important. Putin changed many things. He changed the existing international order, that a neutral country can be attacked by a neighboring country, and it is a problem. If you are part of the problem, you care. If you are not part of the problem, you don't care. This is the basic life principle. And look here, even Turkey at the moment, together with oh yeah. No, I told one of my Japanese friends, sorry, but I use my own right at least 1 minute more. Look, 2 points, shortly. One, NATO enlargement. NATO enlargement, Sweden and Finland is a very important issue. Turkey is now one of the key countries. Japan's NATO maneuvers is a new phenomenon for both countries to come together and cooperate in military terms. And I'm looking forward for the Japanese new defense report, how the Japan is getting more involved in international politics in the future. Last but not least, Japan is a trade country. The Arctic in the north of Europe, where the climate change is also playing a very important role, that the ice is broken, and China alone in 2021 had $178 billion plus surplus in trade, only because the ways shortened. Instead to use 3 months from Hamburg to Shanghai, they go now much faster within 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That the Hamburg port is going to be sold to Chinese COSCO ship company. It's one of the biggest internal debates now in Germany. Should Germany sell it or don't sell it? Yes, but yes, not yet. The parliament has to approve this because it is national asset. But what is more important is here, and really my last question: if America would like to contain Russia and China, not alone China, not alone Russia, together, then Russia and United States of America should pay more attention to Turkish national security interest. This is my last sentence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor BAÐCI. I would like to continue to our next distinguished participant, Professor SATOSHI IKEUCHI. He's a professor of religion and global security in Tokyo University at the Research Center for Advanced Science and Technology, RECAST. He's the founding chair of RECAST Open Laboratory for Emergent Studies as well. In the past, he has been a visiting scholar at the Woodrow Wilson International Center and Clare Hall University of Cambridge. He's a scholar on Islamic political ideology and Middle East politics. He's one of the leading public intellectuals in Japan. He has published widely on Middle East and Islamic affairs. He has a number of books in Japanese with lots of prizes and bestsellers lists. So I would like to leave the floor to his comments. Welcome, thank you very much, Professor IKEUCHI. I was wondering, are you in Tokyo or are you in Israel now?
Oh, hi, thank you very much for your introduction. Now I'm in Tokyo at night. So and thank you for your invitation to on this virtual webinar today, and I'm really honored and thrilled to be the second Japanese speaker next to Professor KANEHARA, and also speak after Professor HÜSEYİN BAÐCI. It's almost impossible for me to talk before two of these strong speakers of both countries. So I keep my comments rather short, but let me allow some promotion campaign of my book. This is yes. First of all, I share this website of DOSHISHA, Turkish publishers, and then I have published both English and Turkish versions of compilation of my political commentaries, which was actually published in UAE each week, and in Arabic, and also published in English and in Turkish translation as book form in Turkey last year. So I'm a rather strange creature between Japan and the Middle East, almost freely come and go between the countries. I'm not really representing Japanese views, because I'm now half Middle Eastern and half Japanese. So, but I congratulate the launch of the joint report between Japan and Turkey and Japan on this occasion of the completion of the report. I have read this report, and I think it will be soon distributed to you. And I learned a lot, and also I learned a lot from the discussions, close discussions between us in the previous years. Under the COVID-19 restrictions, we are in a very difficult situation, but it was kind of healing for me, and I think for us, to keep communication on the virtual format like today. Some of us are coming in, like Professor Shaban now coming from the Gulf, and I'm coming back from the Middle East and from Tokyo, and KANEHARA-san always flying around global, cities, so centers. So we somehow we are now going through the very difficult days of COVID-19, and even during that restricted years, we have continued discussions. That was the one of the achievements. Of course, the report itself is achievement, and now we have more, clear picture of what difference we have between us from Turkey, between Turkey and Japan, and what the commonalities between us, particularly in the field of diplomacy and security policy. One of the dictum I mentioned many times in the book I mentioned before. I hope I think it's still in the market of Turkish bookstores. So I hope you pick up one of them from the bookshelf, and please catch up with our discussion. But one of the dictum I've always mentioned is usually we say my enemy's enemy is my friend. That's okay. That's a very universal dictum. But what is between us, Turkey and Japan? It's a little different. We are not obviously enemies, but we are friends. But we are common friend of U.S., the sole superpower after the Cold War. And so there's some different dictum I compose. This is my ally's ally is what? So obviously we both have strong allies, sometimes reliable, sometimes not. So U.S. is our common ally, but sometimes allies of the sole superpower are not natural friend, and we may become in certain conditions we may become competitors, competing for the precious goods of the sole superpowers, security assurances and support. And so there is some danger between us, even though we are friends and we have much in common, and we have very, very similar standing in the world order today, but there is some competition or inherent competition or some conflict of interest between us. That's our common security guarantor. The United States is becoming more, precious goods. So one of the important thing of this report and the the discussions behind that is we are now having common understanding of both of us. So we have some different impression, different feeling, or different recognition of the present status of U.S. power, U.S. assurance. But at the same time, we have some common ground on the same same side of the world, even though we have a little bit different position in this same camp. So we have a rather common understanding on the liberal international order, but the reliability and viability of this is there's on this reliability we have diverging views on the Turkish side. There are more and more day by day more and more very skeptical understanding of the present order and the U.S. assurances, but on the different side of the world, in Japan, we are now more confident about the future of our relationship between our most important ally, the United States. Even though Japan and Turkey have the common perception of the entire transition of the global order. So we have common concern about the uncertainty of the political and diplomatic system, and we have common allies, and we have some common understanding of the regionalisms on both East Asia and both Middle East. We need the more important contribution for maintaining order by the medium powers like Turkey and Japan. So in the next stage, I think this report clearly shows Japan and Turkey will find a common space in spaces in many parts of the world, particularly in the periphery of each of regions. Like we Japanese have proposing and the new regional vision, wider regional vision of Indo-Pacific, and also Turkey's sphere of interest is expanding. So in the periphery of both of the regional entity, we have common room for cooperation. So and in this report, for example, developmental aid or something like that, we have now more common, field of deployment. For example, Japan's Indo-Pacific vision eventually reaches to East Africa and also Red Sea, and Turkey's regional, rising regional role will eventually or already reaching in this part of the world, on Red Sea and East Africa region. So in the next step, we will consider more strong cooperation between us in the areas such as this. So this report clearly shows the next step of cooperation. That's my comment today. So I still like to hear those strong speakers with which I have really enjoyed to have talk during the discussions, and I'm really happy to continue this discussion for the future cooperation of our two nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor IKEUCHI, for these valuable comments. And lastly, but certainly not the least, Professor MESUT ÖZCAN, I would like to invite to the podium. Professor MESUT ÖZCAN is a professor at University of Social, Ankara University of Social Sciences, and he's also the director of the Diplomacy Institute of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He has been a strong supporter of this project from very early on, and we're happy to have him here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I also thank for this invitation. I was very happy to be part of this project. I learned a lot during discussions that we had with our Japanese and Turkish friends during the project. I'm the last speaker. After all of these remarks, I will be as short as possible. But why we are here today to discuss the Biden administration, their policy towards their engagement with other parts of the world. During the Trump's administration, because of the Trump's policy of America First, there were some question marks in the minds of the many states all around the world in terms of their relationship, their future relationship with the United States. With the arrival of the Biden administration, there were some hopes that everything will be back to previous days and there more and more cooperation. And it seemed that in the early stages of the Biden administration, they said they will be much more engaging with their allies and partners in different corners of the world. And this was the case to a certain extent, but there were also some other priorities that affected the policies of the United States and the allies of the United States, be it in the Middle East, be it in Europe, or be it in Asia. They have different perceptions about the attitude of the United States. And in our part of the world, we had some, as Turkey, had some disagreements with the United States in the past. During the Cold War years, we also had some disagreements despite being a member of NATO. At the same time, we all remember because of the Cyprus issue, we had some disagreements with the United States in the past as well. But after the Cold War years, during the invasion of Iraq, for example, Turkish national security interests were not taken into consideration by the United States, and there were some disagreements as well. And later on, as is said by previous speakers, because of the developments in the Middle East, especially in Syria, the PKK issue, there are also certain disagreements, and recently there are also disagreements regarding some of the defense issues as well. So what I see, what I mean here, even during the Biden administration, despite the reversal of some of the policies, there are also some disagreements between Turkey and the United States, especially some regional issues. However, as member of NATO, we are also in the same alliance. So this relationship goes on with certain disagreements on some regional issues. And we all know this also affected the current bilateral relations between Turkey and the United States. And if you read the report, you're going to see, as a result of these differences of perceptions, there are more and more question marks in the minds of the Turkish academics and experts of foreign policy regarding their relationship with the United States in comparison with the Japanese experts. And I think maybe with the more and more empowerment of China, there might be several question marks in the minds of the Japanese policymakers and experts as well. And as I see as an outsider, with the arrival of Biden administration, Japanese policymakers were very much relieved. They were very happy to go back to normal in terms of their relationship with the United States. However, with the recent developments in Asia, with the increasing threat towards Taiwan, so we will see what will be the future of the relationship between Japan and the United States as well. In terms of the perceptions by the United States allies in different parts of the world, the withdrawal from Afghanistan last year was a very negative signal. Many allies of the United States and also the style of this withdrawal has sent some negative signals to several countries in terms of their relationship with the United States. The hostile withdrawal and also after 30 years of engagement in Afghanistan, we cannot talk about success there. So this all creates certain question marks in terms of the relationship with the United States for many local players. Why I'm referring to the local players? Because the current United States administration, as an observer, pursues a policy playing with local actors in some regional politics like Middle East or Eastern Europe, in Africa, in other places. So, in an increasing way, the US is relying on some local actors, some local allies. But it is only natural to have some differences of opinion on some issues. So these differences of national interest definitely affect their perceptions towards the United States and US perception of these countries. We have witnessed this in the Middle East. Think about the relationship between Turkey and the United States. Think about the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States. So remember, Biden administration was very critical of Saudi Arabia, but because of the conflict going on in our north, so Biden visited Saudi Arabia. So there are certain trends going on in terms of more and more roles for the local actors, for regional actors in terms of the relationship with the United States. But on the other hand, some unexpected events are causing some changes in this policy and making some calibrations in terms of the role of the United States and the role of these actors. When we come to Turkish case, and I will finish in a couple of sentences. There are certain disagreements between Turkey and the United States, and this is also reflected in the report. But the regional dynamics in the Middle East, the conflict is going on in our south, both in the case of Syria and also the instability in Iraq. But at the same time, the Iranian nuclear program. These are all very important issues, and there are certain points of convergence and disagreements between Turkey and the United States. But most of the time, convergences are more than divergences. For this reason, except the PYD PKK issue in Syria, we can agree on many issues with the United States in regional issues, including the Palestine-Israeli conflict. In terms of the conflict going on in Ukraine because of Russian aggression there, so there are certain disagreements in terms of the style policies, but on the other hand, the role of Turkey is appreciated by the United States as well. However, we all know, this is also mentioned by previous speakers, by professors. So US is, in terms of its global role, is in decline, and US is relying more and more on regional actors, local players in terms of its policy in many parts of the world. And this is also creating a kind of transition in which every actor is trying to figure out what will be the future role of his own country, but at the same time they are trying to calibrate their policies according to the new realities of the world politics, and this is creating certain hurdles in terms of their relationship with the United States. So what we are witnessing, what we have witnessed for a couple of decades in the case of Turkish-US relations, and this is also the case for other countries in the Middle East. This is also the case for other countries in Asia, in other parts of the world, and this is creating some instabilities. And in this respect, regional actors having more and more room, and they're having some role to play in terms of regional issues, and to what extent these regional roles are welcomed by the United States, and this is affecting their pace of relationship with the United States. In terms of Turkish-American relations, we had some disagreements in the past, and we still have some disagreements in terms of some regional issues, but still NATO alliance, and also the historical relations are much more important than these type of some local differences. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you will enjoy a lot in terms of reading.
Thank you very much. Before closing, some concluding remarks can we have from Professor Şaban Kardeş?
I think it is already there, Şaban.
Thank you. Are you going to take some questions from the audience first? What is the arrangement? Bahadır Hocam, Haldun Hocam.
Any question or comments from the? So we have also web page, Japan web page. You can Google it and easily access it and access to all the reports, not only this one, also previous ones. Maybe question Shaban, whether it is holiday in Qatar or not. No, we can.
Well, there doesn't seem to be any questions from the floor right now, and the time is getting very late in Japan. So maybe, you could make some comments and present a conclusion for us. Shaban.
Okay, thanks a lot.
From Japan, from Qatar, from Turkey, everybody is participating. Yes.
Yeah, your voice is getting hard to hear because of the mic, it seems. Thanks again to everybody. This has been a very interesting project for us. As Bahadur Hoca mentioned, we have been working with the Japanese embassy for almost more than 8 years now, trying to look at different dimensions of the evolving strategic relationship between the two countries. In the past, we have looked at various dimensions of that relationship, from economics to geopolitical issues, soft issues, hard power issues. But the pandemic did change all of us, our way of academic and other studies as well. And then we have come up with this format, and as Haldun Hoca said, we turned it into an opportunity. Last year, we had extensive meetings of great minds from the two countries, and the strategic forum was, in that respect, a very robust platform to discuss issues of common concern. And then to supplement it, we also conducted the Delphi survey to augment the input into our policy report, in the sense that we wanted to see the diversity of opinions on both sides about where the world is going, where the United States is heading, and also how two important US allies see these developments. And then where we are now, actually, we are holding the report launch at a very critical time, just after the midterm elections, as we say in Turkish, zamanlama manidar. So very timely. And then I think the elections results also show the relevance of our research question we picked up at the very beginning, because we were not sure what to choose as the theme, because there was a discussion about the future of US foreign policy when there was the change in administration, when we prepared the project. And then there was a concern that the topic might be a bit outdated by the time we finished the project, but the kind of discussions that led to the report and also at the very beginning to the project, they are still relevant. As we see where the United States is heading, different options for the conduct of US foreign policy, different priorities for US grand strategy, the discussions are still there. So in that sense, I think the report is really, really relevant. The kind of questions we posed there to the experts from the both sides, they are relevant. And the responses on certain issues, as Haldun Hoca mentioned, there are big similarities, but on other issues, there are also major differences. And I think this discussion here has also helped us rethink about some of the arguments we made in the report. We will definitely use the discussions from this current event workshop to feed into the report and revise it, and we will share it with you. And here, I don't want to take so much time. As Bahadur Hoca said, it is already late in Japan. And I thank everybody again on behalf of our university, members of the project team, Haldun Hoca, Bahadur Hoca, and all of our research assistants, because they were very influential in terms of preparing the events, deciphering them, doing the literature review, so on and so forth. And of course, all the thanks also go to the Japanese embassy in Ankara for their continuing support. And here, I just say have a good day to all of you in Ankara, in Tokyo, or on the web, wherever you are listening to us, because I see not only on the Zoom, but also on YouTube channel, there are quite a few of viewers who are listening to discussion live. I stop here, Haldun.
Thank you, Shaban. So thank you for coming here and thank you for listening us on my channels. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. It seems we have accomplished our mission. And then the report, I hope you found it useful. And we will be in touch with you over time with the final report and also for next year.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll see you.
Thank you
soon.
very much.
Have a
Congratulations.
good evening, Friday evening, and enjoy the weekend.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
you
you.
too. You too.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks a lot.